Right folks, and welcome to the channel. And in today's video we're going to look at a song that I mixed up a little while ago, and this one's called Drifting Purpose. So let's check this out. Like I say, this is a song called Drifting Purpose. Now this is from my good friend Bobby Torres. He's actually the guitar player on this song. I think it's a band that he's either involved with or has been involved with, but yeah, he played guitar on this song, and you can get this song, all these multi-tracks to mix and play about with yourself through his course, Heavy Mixing Unlocked. So I'm going to play you a little bit of the sort of pre-chorus going into the chorus, and then we'll sort of dive down, have a quick look at everything. It's not going to be an in-depth mix tutorial, it's just going to be a quick overview. I will sort of go into little bits of what I've done and why I've done it, and yeah, how long this video ends up being, and I may even show you what I done on the mastering side of it as well, because I did do a bit of a master on this as well while I was doing this. So let's have a listen to see what this sounds like. So yeah, that's a little bit of what the overall song sounds like in its entire, when it's been entirely mixed. I will get these words out eventually. So as you can see, we've got quite a number of tracks. We've got 29 tracks all together. This guitar and this strings one that I highlighted at the moment, they're actually submixers or buses, whatever you want to call them. So it looks like I've got more than 29 tracks on here, but the way I've got where I have my session set out, it's as though I have them set out as though they're like an analog console. So these tracks here, as well as the other two I've just highlighted, are my submixers or buses, if you will. These in green are my effects chains, so drum distortion, delays, and some reverbs in there as well. So if you think back to if you've seen some footage from other sort of big name producers that work in studios, in these big fancy studios that have all these effects racks in them, that's basically what that represents. And then I have these stem tracks at the end, and these are just extra buses. These are like the master tracks for each individual sort of instrument set. So you've got your drum stems, your bass stems, guitar stems, vox, and strings. It's just the final icing on the cake, just to do any final little EQ moves, rather than doing a whole bunch of EQ moves on your master track. I still may do tiny little bit of EQing on the master track if I feel it needed, but what I find is the advantage of doing it with the stems is if you do it all on the master bus, it's affecting the whole song. If you're just doing it on a stem, it's just affected that set of instruments. So if you just feel like, the guitars just need a little bit of, say, 2K taken out, you can just take it out of the guitars rather than it affecting everything. So what we'll start off with is the drums. Now, as you can see, I've got everything coloured up. I've got all my tracks coloured up. So this is, I started doing this a while ago, and it makes your life a whole lot easier. So I have my drums in blue, bass I have in purple, guitar in red, vocals in yellow, and then any strings I sort of have in this sort of slate grey blue colour, and then any synths and sort of effects I'll sort of put in a sort of bit of a different duller red. So I know what I'm working on at any particular point in time. Well, like I said, we'll start off on the drums. So as you can see, on most of the drums, or on most of the on the shells, we've got the Sheps Omnichannel. On the kick, I've got the Sheps Omnichannel, and all I'm really using is the EQ and the compressor. You may ask why you've got no high and low pass filters in there, because that's taken care of on the EQ on the drum submix. So as you can see, all I've really done is taken a little bit out at 400 hertz, just that sort of muddy mid-range, and a little bit of 2K, just taking a notch out at 2K. They were just really annoying me, and just a little bit of compression, about 3 dBs of compression in there, and then after that, just got a touch of limiter on there just to help it just push through a little bit. As you can see, we've got 3 snares in there. We've got three snare tracks. One's a snare sample, then we've got the actual snare itself, and then we've got a snare bottom mic. On the snare sample, that is the actual main snare sound that you're hearing in the track. This isn't a sample from a sample pack or anything like that. This is actually a sample of the snare actually used in the song. So it makes it all consistent. Didn't have any saturation on this one. We have got some high and low pass filters in here, around about 60 to 65 on there, and just over 10K. I have got a gate in there as well, that just to stamp down on those transients. And all I'm doing with the snares is I'm taking a little bit of that sort of, that muddy mid-range again, just to get shot of that muddiness, around about 600K, not 600K, 600 hertz even. Same again, a little bit of compression in there as well. The ratio's a little bit higher on this one, about 5.5 to 1. Same again, so it's only about -3 dB. And then after that, in fact, now I didn't even use the limiter on there. Now on this second snare, this was more for that honky mid-range, but these 2 second snare tracks, they're quite a bit lower down in the mix. Now on this one, there is quite a little bit of processing on this one, so I'll start off with using the inbuilt PreSonus red light distortion plugin, just to give it a bit of nastiness, and then just some EQ, and as you can see, we're filtering everything out under 400 hertz and over 3K. We just sort of getting that honky mid-range, and we've just taken a little bit out at around about 700 hertz. That was a little bit honky, and it's again, we've got a gate in there, a little bit of compression and a limit. And then on the snare bottom, this is for the high-end sizzle. Well, sort of getting that really high-end sizzle from the snare. So we have got a high-pass filter in there at 1K, just taking a little bit of what we're taking out there, -7 dB out at 1300. For me, that was frequency was annoying me. And then we've got a bit of a shelf in there at we've got a shelf in at just over 6.5K, and I choose the VCA style compression on this one. But yeah, same again, only about 3 dB of compression going off there. And then after that, we've got 2 tom tracks. We've only got 2 tom tracks on this one. We've got 1 rack tom and a floor tom, and it's basically the exact same processing on these. We've got some high pass filtering, same again, around about 60 to 65 hertz. And same again, we're just taking that sort of muddy mid-range out, so we're taking a little bit out at around about 240, 250 hertz and some 450. And then again, just some light compression on that one. Did we use no, we didn't use the limiter on that either. And then as you can see, it's fairly similar setup on the floor tom, except we're just taking some, all we're taking out there is some 500 hertz out there. What we're taking out there, around about 5 dB of 500 hertz, and just a little bit of compression. And then as you can see, we have some sends on there as well, and they're all being sent to the reverb in the effects chain, in the effects rack, if you will. And it's just to give the snares and the toms just a bit of beefiness to them. And then as you can see, all these tracks are going straight to the drums submix. And then just panned these two toms out a little bit. And then next we move on to the cymbals. Well, we've got overheads and then we've got as cymbals. So we've got overhead left and right, China, right, and hats. We've got similar processing on all of these. So on this track, this was the only sort of tape saturation I had at the time. I'm just using this one from Hornet. Just use the default setting, and all this is for is just to sort of darken the cymbals down a bit across the board, just to take that sort of high end brittleness off, just to darken them up a bit. And then on the overheads, all we're doing was just taking a little bit out there at 700 hertz, and then we've just got a shelf in there at 10k. So that some of that high end is still coming through, but it's just being suppressed a little bit. Then on the channel, well, on all the cymbals, we've got the Hornet tape on there, and on the EQ on the China, all we've done is taken a little bit out at 270, 280. Another little bit that was annoying me at 2k, and then same again. We've got a shelf in there as well. Just finally, China's. They can be a bit brittle on that top end. On the ride, all we've got is the Hornet tape, and then on the hi-hats, as you can see again, I've got the Hornet tape, and then on the EQ, as you can see, I'm not shy with my high pass filter on there. I've got that set up to 400 hertz, just taking a little bit out there at 700. Same again, that was annoying me. Hi-hats could be very nasty at the top end, so I've got a little pass filter in there at round about 11k. And then, as you can see, all those go to my cymbals submix. Now, on the rooms, fairly similar process. Well, it is, because we've got rooms left in the rooms, right? So we've got some saturation in there. We've got some high and low pass filterings. 148 just to sort of get shut of that really low end rumble from the kick, and just over 4k just to tame the cymbals down a little bit, just to take some of those cymbals out. And all I'm doing in there is taking a little bit out at just under 500 hertz, taking a little bit of that top end off as well, just sort of 3.5, and no compression on there. And then, as you can see, those go directly to the drum stem. As you can see, they get sent to, I've got a couple of sends in there as well for those to go to the drum distortion. Since I've mixed this track, I have sort of altered my sort of processing on drums a little bit. I don't always have these two tracks here, these two stems. A lot of the time now I just have this drums master, because there's one or two things that have changed in Studio One for with parallel processing, and one or two of the plugins that I'm using on this track. So we've got the normal drum submix, nothing on there. We've just taken it down by dB and a half, and then that gets sent to the drums for parallel compression. And all I've got on for this track, I just use the CLA 76, but any compressor will do. And then after that, both of them get sent to the drum stem. And on there, all I did was just notch out a very tiny amount at 680, 700 hertz. That's all that was needed. And I did just use the sort of drum limiter from Joey Sturgis Tones, a Joe Wazerski drum limiter on this track. And then, as you see, that's sent to the drums distortion. And then cymbals are on a separate track. You see, I'm not shy with that. I've got that all the way up to 600 hertz. We've been quite severe with the the cuts there. That's just basically just to take some of the shells out of the cymbals, and just some of the annoying frequencies at 2k. And we've got a tiny, even though that looks severe, it only works out at around about a dB of compression in there. And then same again, that gets sent to the drum distortion, which on this track I was using the red light. Sometimes I'll use this, sometimes I'll use the Audio Assault Head Crusher. They're the main two I use. I have used the Berserker distortion from Waves, but yeah, any DAW's got a saturation program. There's plenty out there for free, and there's plenty of good ones out there. And then just a little bit of EQ in there as well, just to tame some nasty frequencies. And then on the drum stem, all we've got on there, I didn't even take anything out. All we've got is a low shelf in there. And all that's to it. Yeah, it's still letting that low in through from the kick drum, but it's just there to tame it down a little bit. So next we'll move on to the bass guitar. As you can see, we've got two bass tracks. We've got a bass amp and a bass DI. Now, I do this on a lot of tracks of my own. I don't have an actual bass amp. I'm usually using a bass amp, same because I've not got space for the bass amp. But I do similar processing, or most of the time on my own tracks. So on the bass amp, all we've got in there, we've got some EQ in there. We're just notching that sort of muddy mid-range out just to get shut of the muddiness. We've got the high pass in there at 61 hertz. That's just to make room for the kick drums. Yeah, with it being a bass, low pass filter any higher than about 4.5K. And like I said, we're just taking that sort of muddy mid-range out. Got a little bit of compression going off in there as well, just to sort of tame everything down a little bit, just to try and keep everything consistent. And we have got some limiting in there just to tame those peaks down. For this track on the bass DI, this is like with the snare, this is more for that honky sort of mid-rangey. So we've got high pass in there at 500 hertz up to 4K. And on this track, I was using the TSE bass overdrive just to give the bass a bit of extra grit, sometimes I'll use this, sometimes I'll either use the inbuilt flange plugin in Studio One, or maybe a chorus, just add a bit of difference. And then with it being a distortion, we've got an extra EQ in there as well, because sometimes what you'll find is when you add the distortion after the EQ, brings more of the low end frequencies out. So we've got another EQ in there, so similar sort of filter in there, but we have just taken a little bit out at 700 hertz. Same again, just a little bit of compression in there and some limiting on the bass submix. We're just notching a little bit of the sort of mid-range and just some out there at the upper mid-range at 1.5K, and that's all that needed. Did I take anything? Oh yeah, just took a little bit out, just a little bit of extra EQ there, but no, that's just a bit of level. It's just a bit of levelness on there. And then on the bass stem, as you can see, it's a similar thing to the drums. All we're doing on there, all I've done on there is just got a low shelf in it, around about 150 hertz, just to tame that low end down a little bit. Sometimes I'll find on bass around about sort of in this sort of upper mid-range, sort of 800 to 2K. You do find some annoying frequencies, but yeah, I was happy with it was sounding. So onto guitars, two main rhythm tracks. As you can see, there's actually no processing on at all. If I remember rightly, I could be wrong here, I'm sure Bobby will tell me in the comments if he sees this video. I think this was using a 5150 with his Mesa cab that he's got in the studio. I could be totally wrong on that. So all the processing on the guitars, the actual guitar, some mixes there, because we've got some automation on here as well. So all we've got on is some EQ in there. So we've got low pass in at 70, 80 hertz. Same again, with these low and high pass filters, it's just making room for each instrument. And all I found that was really annoying me was around about 400 hertz, just over 400 hertz, was just a really annoying frequency in there. And with it being a real amp, the low pass filter is set to about 12K. I usually find real amps, between 10 and 12K is usually a good starting point for your low pass filter. with amp sims and IRs between 8 and 10, roughly. I have gone down as sort of 7K. But yeah, anywhere sort of between sort of 7, 8K up to about 10K. Anything above that is just absolute white noise on a amp sims and IRs. And then after that, all we've got in there is the Waves C4. And all we're doing in there is the typical Andy Sneak trick, just to catch those pan mutes. And that's all we're doing in there. We're using this analog rack from Nembrini. Same again, just to sort of calm those sort of pan mutes down, just to clear that sort of low end up a bit and the sort of lower mids, just to clean things up a bit. And then on the lead guitar tracks, I think these use the same amp, but we do have a little bit of processing on here. As you can see, we've got the low and the high pass filter set slightly differently. And why do we do this? It's just to keep it out of the way of the main rhythm tracks, making room for each instrument with high and low pass filters. With this one, we've got it around about 190 Hz, 190, 200 Hz, and around about 8K. And I've just taken a little bit out there at 590. That's all that needed. And then a little bit of compression just to keep everything nice and level, keep all the volumes nice and level. And that's exact same processing on both lead tracks. And then, as you can see, there's a send there to the lead's delay effect. All I've got on there is the Super Trap from Waves Audio, and we've just panned the delays out slightly, and we've just got them on slightly different timings, just to sort of give that stereo effect. And then I've just taken the top end out there of the delay, just warms it up a little bit, just warms that lead up a little bit. And then after that, we've got some vocals in there. We've got a main vocals for the verse, and then just sort of an extra one that comes in on odd words here and there on the verse, and then we've got dual chorus, and it's basically the same processing on everything. So we've got compression, some EQ, as you can see there, we've got that set to about 129 Hz, just to make space for everything else. And we've just notched some this guy's voice, just needed some notching out at around about 700 Hz, 680, 700 Hz, and just a little bit out again at around about 10K. He's a pretty decent vocalist, this guy, so we didn't need to do too much with his voice there. Just an extra little bit of compression in there. Rather than having one compressor doing all the work, we sort of splitting it up between two compressors. I mean, there's a couple of songs I've done where I've put 3 or 4 compressors on vocals. Sometimes I'll have different compressors for each, because they're doing slightly different things, and it can add a slight different bit of flavour as well. And we've got a limiter just to sort of tame all the peaks. And then after that, we've just got a de-esser. Now on the second verse vocal, the only thing that's different on there, instead of that first compressor, we're using the TSE bass overdrive just to add a bit of grit to it. All the other process is the same. Same with the chorus vocals, because it's the same vocalist throughout, except on this second chorus vocal, we have got a bit of analog delay in there, and it's only a slight little bit, just to add a little bit of stuff in there. And then, as you can see, these two main vocals, they're being sent to 2 different delays. We've got a slapback, and then we've got a normal delay. And as you can see at the minute, that second delay is switched off because we've got some automation in there for it to come in every now and again. And then all those get sent to a vocal submix. And then on the vocal submix, all we've got in there is just a little bit of saturation, tiny amount of EQ. We'll have a look at the delays on the effects. So as you can see, all we've got in there, I've got a slapback delay in there. And then we've just put a low pass filter in there just to make it sound a little bit warmer. And then on this second delay, this is just a normal basic delay. I'm using the Super Trap, and it's I think I used similar settings for this as what I did on the lead guitars, but slightly different processing on the EQ. Yeah, we've got that sort of low pass filter in there at 5K. But then we've got a low shelf in there at 300 Hz, just to sort of tame that low end down a little bit, just so it doesn't get too muddy. And I forgot to do the guitar stem, so we'll do the guitar stem now. All I did in there was just taking a little bit of 1K and a tiny amount of 2.5K out there. Those frequencies were annoying me a little bit. On the vocals, just a little bit of 2K. Between 1 and 2K can be really annoying. And you don't need a lot out. It's usually only a dB at most. So after that, we've got some strings. We've got cello, viola, and a couple of violins in there. And as you see, we have got some panning going off. Only a little bit of panning. We're not fully panning these hard left and hard right. It's just a little bit of panning just to bring some width into the strings. Basically the same processing across all these tracks. We've got some saturation in there. All we've got in there is a high pass filter, some compression and some limiting. Basically got this roughly the same sort of filtering in there. And then on the actual strings submix, we've got some chorus going off. I'm using the Blue Cat chorus on there. Little bit of filtering in the mid-range, so about 340 hertz and around about 830, 840 hertz. Same again, it's just taking that sort of that muddiness out there. And then I've added a little bit of reverb in there as well, just to add some width to it and some atmosphere. And then we've got these sort of synth and sort of little effects on the synth track. This is similar processing to what's on the strings. We've got the red light in there against some saturation, a little bit of EQ, sort of 300 to 6K, and we're following this similar theme here, honky, muddy, mid-range out there, just to clean everything up a little bit. Some chorus and a little bit of room reverb in there as well. Now on these two other tracks here, these are just little effects tracks at right at the beginning of the song. One's a reverse cymbal and then one's a snare bump. And all I've got on there is just some EQ, just a high pass filter on those, and those go directly to the string stem. That's why I've not gone to the string stem this time. Honest, go for and on the string stem, what did we notch out? We notched out half a dB at 1.8K. That's all we did on there. And before move on to what's on the master track, as you can see, we've got some automation on there. So we've got some automation on the guitars, strings, and some on the main lead vocals. Now on the guitars, it's just on the rhythm guitars, and it's just take it down by negative 2 dB just to make room for the lead guitars to pop through. And then on the vocals, all it is to bring this extra delay in. So as you can see, where it dips down, that is where the delay switches on. As you see there, look, switched on, switched off. And then we also have some on the strings, just right at the beginning where it comes in, we just notch it all up a dB, just to say, oh look, here's the strings. And then on the master track, all I've got on there is the SSL master bus compressor, and all we're doing in there is just control. It's just a bit of mixed glue, if you will. As you can see, we've got no makeup gain on there at all. Threshold set to around about 3 dB, tack at 10, auto release, and 2:1 ratio. And then after that, just a bit of tape saturation. Now, as you can see on here, yeah, the restream, I've got restream on because that's going into OBS. And then we've got the loud max limiter, but that's just for mixing. So when I render a track down, I just switch that off and delete it. And then all I do, go into export mix down and render that down as a WAV file. And then I'll give it a title in there. I've already done this previously, so I'm not going to do it this time. But yeah, I'll put the drifting purpose in there, or drifting purpose mix, because then we can give it its proper title in the mastering section. So we will have a quick look at the master. Now there is a couple of ways of doing this within Studio One. I'm presuming in some doors they haven't got a separate mastering screen. Some doors do. In Studio One you can do it in the mastering screen, or you can just bring another song page up like this, but I tend to do it in the mastering page. So let me bring that up and I'll show you what I've done on there. So this is what they call the project page in Studio One. This is what I use for mastering. You don't have to use this. You can do it within the put the render down track into a song page and do it from there. It's exactly the same sort of process. On this track, originally I did use the C4 from Waves just to sort of give a bit of -3 dB gain reduction. Then I also use Ozone 8. This is what I use on just about every master. I do leave the EQ section on sometimes. I do a tiny little bit of EQ in here, but it's only used a very tiny much. If I'm finding I'm having to do a fair amount of EQ here, then I'll scrap this and then go back to the mix and have a look at the problems there first. This is basically doing the same as the C4, so that's why I don't always use the C4. I'll do it here. It's just a little bit of gain reduction, just a bit of gain reduction, a bit of limiting, and then use this imager just to sort of give a bit of width to the top end. And then this is the actual mastering. Got my ceiling set. This track I only needed it at -0.6. I've got the threshold quite high, but it is all set to -14 LUF. That's the figure that you need to keep an eye on. And as you can see, I've got a bit of dither set on in there. That's basically everything I do for, well, that's what I've done for mixing and mastering this track. What I'll do now is I will put the full master track on so you can have a listen, and then I'll come back after that. So there you go, folks. That's what bits and bobs I did for mixing this track down. I think it sounds quite good. I'm quite happy with that mix. If you want to get hold of these multi-tracks, go and hit Bobby Torres up over at Frightbox Recording. And yeah, sign up for his course, Heavy Mixing Unlocked, and you get all these tracks to mix and master yourself. You don't just get all the audio tracks. You get the audio, and he shows you how to do it with MIDI as well, for MIDI drums, for people like me that's using MIDI drums to do a lot of my home recording with. And that's all for this video. Don't forget to do all the usual YouTube stuff, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. You know the drill by now. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down, whatever. It all helps towards the engagement. Let me know what you think, and that's all for today. I will catch you in the next one. Right folks, I hope you enjoyed that video. You can follow me on social media and you can get my music online, and if you want to support the channel, there's Buy Me a Coffee and PayPal links. They're all down in the description. Click up here to subscribe and click the link down there for videos that you may not have seen. Keep it loud and keep it heavy.